There's a group called the National Bureau of Economic Research that has the job of dating recessions. And so they will say, yep, we're in a recession, or no, we're out. And the recession, according to them, started in the very end of 2007. And I think by the end of 2009, they said that the recession was over. Now, that didn't exactly square with everybody's job market experience.
The number of homes facing foreclosure has jumped 57%.
This will be a time of anxiety for Americans worried about their mortgages and their homes.
Economists worry the housing slump will plunge the broader economy into a recession.
And let's do whatever it takes to keep the promise of America alive in our time.
I was always looking for that American dream. That's becoming an American nightmare.
Check. I just realized after looking for whatever opportunities, were available that there weren't any that were viable to support the family. But we had been doing the music mission part-time already, had all the equipment in place, everything was basically ready to go. All we had to do was go out and do this. I remember sitting our family down. At the time we had 7 children, we now have 8, and I said, okay, I think that I need to do this music ministry full-time. I think that's the only viable thing that we can do to make a living right now. But I'm not going to do it on my own. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So everybody was on board.
Positive. That was February of 2012.
Yeah.
We've been going ever since.
For a few years we held on as long as we possibly could, but by the end of 2011, it was evident that I could no longer make a living as a real estate appraiser anymore. So I had to find a way to make a living and support my family. During the concert, I tell our story in a very, truncated way. And by the way, this is my daughter, Marissa. She is my 19-year-old daughter, my second oldest. She just also happens to be my background singer. Because she's my daughter, I don't have to pay her, so that's kind of nice.
It gives other people just the chance to be part of what we're doing. And a lot of people have told us that they love hearing about our story and they're just amazed at what we do.
It took meeting other people across the country that went through the same thing for me to finally realize that it wasn't just me.
This is the most beautiful thing. This is the most beautiful thing.
My husband called his older sister, and he's like, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna be living in our, my car and his truck. And she said, hang on, and she called another sister, and that sister offered us here. And so here we are, 7 years later, and I'm gonna go buy paint and try to make it real. I have to accept that this is where I live, and it's hard. It's not where I would choose.
We bounced around. We moved a lot. And right before we had moved back in with my mom, I decided that, something had to change. So I went back to school. Rick feared that, it was going to take too much. But the income that we had, I was able to qualify for a lot of assistance for school. So essentially, my school was paid. I didn't have to pay for school. I knew I wanted to go healthcare because it would bring stability. Eventually, there would be some sort of, job that wasn't going to go anywhere.
But let's say it was two years officially as a recession, but the unemployment rate stayed quite high for another 3 or 4 years, and certainly there was the remains of a lot of financial wreckage from people who had gone into debt and still owed an awful lot more money than they could earn.
We've talked about a lot of things since losing the house. We've talked about bankruptcy, about that might give us a fresh start. I have read and talked to several people who have gone through bankruptcy who are able to buy a house in a couple of years. Another thing we've talked about is divorce, because that would both make us head of households and we could file better income taxes. There's so many things that cross your mind when you go through this situation that you would never in a million years thought of. Never in a million years would I thought of divorcing somebody just to try to help our financial situation. Would just totally was not how either one of us were raised. You don't throw in the towel. You keep fighting, you keep working, and you do it. You just keep going.
It was a lot of uncertainty when we actually had to leave. Like, Mommy, where are we going? Where are we going? I can't take my such and such. I'm like, no, you can't take that. In Majorca, you have resources, you have families that are whole. In Liberty City, you have broken families. You have people getting shot, killed, just you name it. This is almost like a forgotten place. It was a transition that just happened so very fast, and I don't know if I was prepared enough for it, let alone my kids.
As a family, we did everything we could to make the kids not feel like there was a giant crisis going on. So, you do every little thing you can to make that money stretch. Learn how to save the seeds from the plants you grow so that you can plant them. See where you can barter. The lady down the street would take the vegetable peelings and things for eggs. Thankfully, the place that we rented had some land, so I had a huge garden. I taught myself how to can, did a lot of research, started doing jams and jellies just to try it out, and then realized that you can pretty much put anything you want up. And if you buy a bag of beans, so a bag of beans is, 99 cents, and you can make 16 jars of beans. You're saving $15 at the grocery store. We just move forward, doing the best you can. I don't need what I thought I needed.
So McLean Stevenson is like a regular in here now?
We're building our emergency fund back up and our 6-month living fund and all that stuff. But yeah, there are times when we're putting stuff back at the grocery store and kids have to wait for stuff. They have, I've got holes in my shoes and, that sort of thing. But that's the way it used to be in America. You wore stuff out, you appreciated what you had, and you used it up. So we're raising our kids with that mentality, partly through our choice and partly through necessity. But some days it's the food gets a little tight. That's our biggest expense.
I sleep in girldom, so girldom is just the back part of the trailer with the 4 bunks, and there's no room for anything but 4 people.
It's small.
It's small for 10
people
people and a cat. And seriously, the cat takes up more space than the rest of us.
It's harder than life in a house to some point, but it's just an adventure. Every day there's something new, so it feels like there's no such thing as routine anymore. We started out wanting to have a routine and trying to do routine, but after life kicked in, that kind of just all fell apart, and now every single day it's just like, oh, what's gonna happen next?
The idea of having another house payment
It's not
just is not something
comfortable.
that I really feel comfortable doing. I mean, the freedom that we have now with no house payment and the real freedom that we have just touring around the country, that's priceless. I don't know how to explain that. It's not a tangible thing, but it's something that just, every time we think about letting go of that, it was like, we love doing what we're doing.
Some people think that buying a house is the best investment you can make and that everybody should own one. I think that's too strong a generalization. I think what people need to do is they need to figure out, they need to have a good household budget. They need to know what their fixed costs are outside the house. They need to think about the probability of losing a job or suffering diminished hours. They need to think about how much financial cushion they have and recognize that that loan is a big commitment, and it's one that doesn't go away if you get sick, that it bears therefore some risk, as well as the benefit of living in your own house or the benefit of a longer-term capital gain. So be careful with the loan.
We do hope we can buy a house. I talked to a realtor, and she had her lending guy call us, and he said, well, your credit score has to be above 510. It's a minimal that our lenders will do. And ours is, I've just finally gotten it over 400. It's just taken a long, long time. Mitch thinks I'm a little nuts, but I go through the sale paper every Wednesday like clockwork and write down what we use so that that's what we go and get. We don't get extras. And I've learned how to pay my bills so that they're paid on time, but they spread across 3 paychecks. We struggle, but we're making it. It'll be all right. That's what we keep telling each other. It'll be all right.
Yeah, we definitely want to buy a house again. It's no fun giving your money away to somebody else. And I feel like that's all we're doing. We're thinking about it. That's the stage we're at. What would it take to get there again? To save up the money for down payment. Whether the credit's good enough at this point. And the fear that the bottom will drop out again. I don't want to ever go through that again.
Recovery for us was probably slower because the problem was unnaturally larger. But the city's turning the corner, and we started to see businesses open. We see house sales now. We see families moving in, and so we see the labor that we put in, the added officers, the enhancement to parks, the business recruitment, the economic development. We see that stuff starting to pay off, but it's just happening slower here. It's happening slower here, but I'm happy to say we're moving forward.
I think that if we all continue to do our part, and that's the lending institutions, the housing counseling agencies, and even people, educating themselves about their credit and credit worthiness and what its value is, as well as home ownership. I want to believe that we can all do better and that we can all succeed, and I look forward to watching the advances.
I do all I can to teach and expose my kids to financial literacy. They both have an account with the credit union. They're able to deposit money. They can watch their money. They know when they go buy things with their debit card, do you have enough money for that? And if not, let's put that card up. We can't have it. Save your money. I tell them to save their money. Focus on, making a better way out. Don't take the same road that I have.
I haven't seen any signs of the real estate bubble bursting on a national scale. I think there are some local markets where there might be some price declines, particularly if interest rates rise. I don't think there's any national problem at this point. But there are an awful lot of economists and an awful lot of thoughtful commentators looking at the disparity of income distributions. The numbers are on income disparity are strikingly large, the disparities are, and they seem to be getting worse. And to the extent that everybody views homeownership as the fulfillment of the American dream, you have a large chunk of the population that will never be able to afford that part of the American dream.
For the last 2 years, I've been raising awareness about what affordable housing really is. And that encompasses both rental and home ownership, but primarily for rental housing. For far too long, when people say affordable housing, they think of only blacks and people who are poor. But in the 21st century, that crosses all income and gender lines. What I do is try to change that narrative to say, hey, they usually say, oh, if you go to school, you can make it. I've done that. I've gone to school. Matter of fact, I went for my bachelor's and my master's. Now what? Do I have to get a doctorate to be able to live here affordably? That makes no sense.
So is homeownership a major part of the American dream? I think it is, to be sure. And to some extent, if you've got the financial security to buy a house and take on those financial commitments, that means in some sense that you have made it. So it's not the house that means you've made it, but it's your ability to finance the house that means you've made it and you've attained part of the American dream.
You can choose to let it take you over, and you can choose to essentially be done. Or you can see down the road and see that, you know, in 5 years you don't know what's going to happen. Tomorrow you don't know what's going to happen. So to give up hope now isn't going to put you anywhere.
I get flashback of the boom, but I'm hoping that we learned something from both sides. I'm hoping that home buyers learned, don't buy what you can't afford. I'm hoping lenders said, look, where's your 20%?
I do worry about my finances, yes. Especially living in South Florida, who's not? Everything is overpriced and we're extremely underpaid. And I'm actually really scared to go back to home ownership if it's not affordable. If I can't pay that mortgage in one check, I don't want it. You couldn't even give it to me. Given the times we're in, that's not even realistic. I was always an advocate for home ownership. I was always looking for that American dream. So I don't want the American dream because they didn't create that for me. So I want my dream.
I have gone from somebody who saw through rose-colored glasses to kind of have a gray tint now. I'm just, I don't know, just take a step back and reevaluate it and think about it. I hope so. And so does Monroe. Monroe wants his own house, but we do hope we can buy a house and have some freedom to have a garden and do the things that we used to do.
I think many people that do define themselves by their career or finances or big house or car, when forced to, can come up with a new identity. And I will say that one takeaway that I found, and I use this as I meet with people, is that oftentimes they're happier on the other side.
As an appraiser, I mean, I made a lot of money. The nice things about the fact that I was able to make a lot of money and we were able to have all this, a nice lifestyle and everything, you realize that that's not what makes you happy. The sad thing is that as an appraiser, I was stuck in my office for 16 hours a day and I never saw my family. Now, I'm able to be with my family full time and be able to,
Oh, and that makes you happy.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, I'm actually less stressed now than I used to be. She can attest to that.
Yes, definitely.
But then, if you step back and you look at the big picture,
yeah,
I think all of us are happier than when we were in that other lifestyle.
To me, the American dream isn't so much about having, this perfect life. I can be a background singer, I can travel the world, I can be with my family all the time while I'm doing that. And just the fact that we've got that freedom, that to me is the real American dream.
Hi everyone, we are in Wisconsin. My mother-in-law is taking a little break from the road, and we've got a little family update.
We are having baby number 9.
Yes, that's not donuts and cheesecake and cheese curds.
It might be cheese curds.
I'm finally have my credit scores creeping up slowly, so that's been really good and helpful. It makes me feel a lot better, and I'm leaving the options open. With the amount of money I get per month, I am not sure what I can afford, so I've also been kind of looking around to see if I can find a job when I get back and go back to work, at least part-time, if not full-time. It's just the way life is. 61 and back to work, you know?
I am surviving the aftermath of the foreclosure. I am currently looking for a safe and decent, affordable place to rent, but due to my income and the pay disparities that runs rampant in South Florida, I just have not been able to find a place to rent. I am what you call priced out.
Hi everyone, Heather Little here. Since the video, my husband and I have really worked hard on taking a step forward to being healthier. We have combined lost 110 pounds, so that's really exciting to be able to move forward and take time for us to be better.